This is Steve Zeltzer. I'm with Workweek and with Pacifica. And there's an important struggle going on in Namibia of the Namibian National Mineworkers Union and the Rossing branch. And these workers work for Chinese Uranium National Company, which is a Chinese-owned state company. And they are fighting now against their discharge. And they say that they were discharged because they refused to accept concessions. And also, these discharges were illegal under Namibian labor law. And joining us today is Hewat Beukes. He is the attorney, the lawyer representing these workers in court in Namibia. Welcome to Workweek.
Glad to have you.
Good. So maybe you can talk about this case, why this case is important for workers of Namibia, not just the mine workers, but all workers in Namibia.
Okay, the situation in Namibia is quite an interesting one. The nation had been facing colonialism since 1884 under Germany after the Berlin conference in which they divided up Africa. And immediately upon assuming the administration here, the Germans tried to proletarianize the indigenous peoples, finding massive resistance amongst the people. But the proletarianization of the peasantry did take place, and with it came labor struggles because of the barbaric conditions under which people work, especially people from the north in the country, which was the more populous part of the country. And labor, there is a research entity here, the Labor Research Center of the Union Federation, the NUNW, which documented the struggle since the late 1800s. But a real serious struggle started in 71, 72 with the general strike, in which all the economic sectors of this country went on strike and brought the country to a standstill. This was a milepost in the sense that for the first time, I'm not aware of any other parallel situation, similar situation in Africa, where the workers demonstrated extreme power in which they could bring our whole economy to a standstill for something like 2.5 months. Now, this was the this offset the struggles in the whole of Southern Africa since 1973. I think the dismissed workers of Rossing documented this part of this history in a synopsis. Nevertheless, the 71-72 struggle was important in the sense that it ignited massive uprisings of workers, particularly in South Africa. And the Namibian working class was part of it, but it was as a colony of South Africa. And but a true union movement only originated at the Rossing mine in the middle to later 70s. 78 was actually the formal establishment of a union movement, which met with massive repression from the South African state. But these struggles went on, and in South Africa and in Namibia, so much so that at any one time, 4 million workers were down tools in both South Africa and Namibia. And there was this symbiotic relationship between the colony and South Africa, the working class, in which the one struggles infused into the other struggles. In 1984, both in Namibia and in South Africa, the workers won union rights, despite the massive and brutal repression. And the struggles, struggles that went on from 1976 unabated until 1994 had as a result the independence of Zimbabwe, the independence of Namibia, and democracy in South Africa. That was won through the workers' struggles, because the apartheid regime could not rule in the old way. It had to find new ways. And unfortunately, the working class did not develop a leadership in their own name for themselves, and they were superseded by a nationalist bourgeois leadership, both in South Africa and in Namibia. And in Namibia, basically, we have a comprador state, which is completely subservient to imperialist interests. And this is what the working class are facing now, because they've dismantled the union rights. Every mine had a union. The commercial sector had the unions like NAFAO, the Food and Allied Workers Union, and every sector of the economy had union with the union rights, and there was the accompanying legislation that the workers had won. But since 1990, when independence came, they were systematically dismantling union rights through the regime here, and through corporate lawyers changing the labor rights in legislation in a very insidious manner. So what we found out now, when this the problem broke at the Rossing, we found out that many of these mines did not have union rights anymore. It was a question of hiring and firing. There's a mine, a manganese mine, where the Brazilians are operating. They do not allow union rights. There are at a cement factory, they do not allow union rights. And we only found it out now a few weeks ago, that in fact, this mine workers union was a toothless bulldog. And they actually betrayed these their own executive branch executive at Rossing. But because historically Rossing is the foundation of the union movement, and it is very much integrated with the community, because partly because of the struggles, partly because of this link of the mines to the town Swakopmund, where whole communities live dependent on this mining on this mining sector. So it is literally the last stand that the working class is taking is at Rossi. There are pockets of resistance in the south at the zinc mines and a number of other mines that the union are still operating. But it seems that now is the time that the only opportunity or in this incident that these workers have been awakened to defend their rights. It is a last stand, but there seems to be quite a widespread consciousness amongst the working class to defend these rights. And it is centering around these 9 branch executives who have been expelled. The mine workers union executive bureaucracy have taken a resolution that they stand solidly behind the executive, but the executive is questioning their motives because they are supposed to stand in front, because this is not an attack so much so on the 9 individuals that they were firing. It's an open attack on the union itself. The union is a juristic person in its own right, and in that capacity, it entered into a contract with the management of the mine. So what is happening here is that in dismissal of the executives, which is not tenable under Namibian law, that another juristic person can intrude in the freedom of association of another juristic entity. This is basically what these young workers are complaining about, is that the union should have taken action as a union against the Chinese management. And this is what they are doing now. They are actually they are taking over the role of the union leadership. This is what's happening. The community, as when I defended them on Monday in court, the community of members of the community came to support them, and they indicated that the whole families would stage a protest. And the fisherman who has been on strike for the past 5 years and who have just won back their employment positions have indicated they've met and they've decided to combine in the fight for unionism in Namibia. The fishermen's situation was a bit different. The fishermen's leadership was not in any leadership positions in the union, in the fishermen's unions. But the fishermen's unions, there are a number of fishermen's unions, they joined 2 or 3 of them to be able to defend themselves against illegal dismissal, more than 4,000 fishermen. But these unions betrayed them one after the other, to the point where they had to register their own association. Now they are back in the work, they have recruited the working fishermen to join the association, and they are willing, or they've agreed to join together to fight for unionism in this country, to defend union rights in this country, which is the most encouraging situation. This is my wife, Erica. She's actually the director of the Workers' Advice Center. There was just now, there was on the 25th of November, there were regional and local government elections. And SWAP has lost the entire South. It has retained some seats in some local authority councils in the North due to rigging of elections. There was not much control in the North, but wherever there was sufficient control by the other parties, it has lost the entire South of the country, and it has lost the coast where the fishermen, it has lost heavily. It is persona non grata at the western coast. For 30 years, like they have done in Zimbabwe, where they where they declared these elections free and fair on the basis that they needed political continuity. Now, political continuity meant that it did not mean whatever they how corrupt the regime was, as long as they could control it. SWAPO is probably the most subservient of the comprador regimes in Southern Africa. It is only because of independence that stopped them from still saying yes, boss, or yes, Bwana. That is the situation. It has lost popularity long time ago, but it kept political power. I don't know if one can say power, because these imperialists are in total control of them. But the situation in Namibia is also partly because of its history, is that it's a very resistant community. Despite the extermination attempts and so on, it has always resisted. It was a continual resistance since Germany came here. And that seems to reflect in the attitude of the working class here.
Rio Tinto was the former owner of the Racine mine, uranium mine. When the Chinese took over, bought it out, they promised that they would follow the labor code in Namibia, and they would accept the labor conditions, the labor rights. And we know that they tried to bribe the union leadership of Racine, and that was rejected. China now, what do you know what percentage of the economy China owns now in Namibia?
Yeah, that is a. I don't think China holds sway in the economy. It's a strange situation. For instance, this country at the moment is the government is bankrupt. It's literally run by donors, and the major donors are the Germans, and they give tenders to the Chinese. I have a suspicion that the ass licking of the Chinese is to do with the cars that they sell in China. But I do not know the full configuration in their relationship. But the financial sector is dominated and controlled by Western imperialists. The commercial sector is still dominated by South Africa and by Britain and so on.
And SWAPO, I understand that they have taken on a term, I don't know whether it's true, Socialism with Namibian Characteristics.
If this is socialism, I have, then maybe I don't understand what it's meant by it, because
well, China says it's developing socialism with Chinese characteristics.
Yes, they've said it to us. They've in fact wrote a letter to my wife and asked because we have got a socialist party. They asked her whether we agree with China's socialism with Chinese characteristics. And we said, we wrote back and said, definitely no. I mean, these are the idiosyncrasies of these kinds of regimes. They would say things like, that shows you the demands that they are aware of, the innate demands of the masses here. They would use things like expropriation without compensation. And they would use such radical terms while at the same time they say that poor people shall not get land. They actually say, they state it openly, they stated that no white land ownership will be touched. So these are the idiosyncrasies in these things, but it's more of a circus than anything else, because it does not even impress anyone anymore.
And the issue of the colonization of Namibia and South Africa, for that matter, by multinationals, by the billionaires around the world, China said it was different, but in your case, what are you going to seek to prove in the court as far as China's role in the union busting at the Rossing mine?
What I explained to the mine workers is this: going to court has its problems. It will not work if it is not accompanied by political action, by serious political action, and that is what we are working. We are not going to take Christmas holidays and anything. We are working through the Christmas, because when the year begins, we will have to fight, because we have got this court case coming up in early January. They've not given us dates yet, but I presume it's after the 15th of January that they will give us a date. But the Chinese have no qualms to try and bribe the judges and so on. But what we suggested to these youngsters is that we must have at least 2 mass demonstrations that they must arrange with the fishermen, and in which the placards express clearly to the communities and the actual grievances that they have and the complaints that they have. That is point number 1. Then we plan to give to each political party in the country and to the working class as far as we can get internationally. The role that the Chinese are playing. We suggested to them that they write a letter to the ambassador in Namibia, but then they informed us that you suggested that they write a letter to the president of China, and I think that is a splendid idea. So we are preparing the letter, and we are going to ask this man whether he is going to destroy the working class movement in this country in this cynical manner. We will be respectful, but we are going to do it on the basis that they are claiming to be socialist and that they are standing for working class rights.
Yeah,
we want to know.
Dear Comrade Xi, the president of China. Yeah.
Yes, we are going to use that word, Comrade Xi, because and then we are going to give all of you around the world, as far as we can get, the same letter.
Good.
These are the actions that we are going to take, and we are going to unite the working class at all areas of struggle. There's this group, I must send you the struggles that are continuing. It's 3,500 workers in the old compound, contract compound that they wish to eject illegally. In Tsumeb, they've been fighting for the past 4 years against illegal evictions and so on. And these are the groups that we hope to bring together to fight for union rights.
The Silk Road, China now is probably the biggest investor in the world of capital in Latin America and in Africa. And I know that when I visited South Africa, there was concern of NUMSA, of unions in South Africa, that projects were being developed with China in which China was importing labor, importing workers into South Africa to do the jobs, even though there were South African workers who could do the work.
Same here.
And
Same
also
here.
In Ghana, I understand, I interviewed a professor that she said that even convict labor was being imported from China into projects that we're doing in Ghana. What is the situation as far as importation of labor? I know one of the issues of the union is that Chinese staff were being brought in improperly into the mine to take over jobs that should have been jobs for Namibian workers. Can you talk about that whole development?
Yeah, this is the problem that they've explained to me too, is that workers are brought in. Now, the skills have been developed in these uranium mines over a period of, what is it? 76.
Decades.
Yeah, it's 46 years, 44 years, 46 years that they've been developing these skills. And now they are simply displacing these skilled workers with people from China who must still be inducted into these skills. Our position, my personal position, and our group's position is this: that we have been taking it up with the unions right from the start, is not to develop anti-Chinese worker position, but because they brought in these Chinese workers and they treat them in absolute brutality. They work from 7 in the morning until 10 o'clock at night. They carry heavy burdens. And I asked them, why don't they carry heavy stuff 2 or 3 people together. And they explained to me, or Chinese workers explained to me that they were not allowed to. Now, apparently that is part of reducing labor costs. But I presume that they work these people to death by the age of 30 or 35. And instead of taking an anti-Chinese worker position, I'm not saying that they should not complain about them importing workers while there are workers here. But the union should have complained about them bringing in these workers, because that is the standards that they are eventually going to bring all the workers' labor conditions to. And in any event, workers don't look at nationality, they look at solidarity. And they never took it up. In South Africa, there is obviously a very strong movement in xenophobia. In Namibia, not so much, but people feel, the workers feel aggrieved that these Chinese companies bring in labor to displace Namibian labor.
What you're saying is that not only do they bring in labor from China to displace Namibian workers, but the actual conditions of the workers that they bring in from China are much worse than the conditions of Namibian workers in the mine.
Yes, yes, it's backbreaking. It is backbreaking, savage working conditions.
So they're undermining the labor standards in Namibia by bringing in workers and treating them worse than Namibian workers.
Yes, much. And they expect the Namibian workers to that they do employ to subject themselves to those conditions, and this causes labor unrests.
So they're competing. They're bringing in Chinese workers with much worse conditions and putting them in competition with Namibian workers to break down their labor conditions.
Yes.
For all workers. Now, Erica, you're part of the Workers Advice Center. What is the Workers Advice Center, and what are the issues that you've been involved in the struggle of Namibian people, workers?
Workers Advice Center is like the name, advice for workers around just about every issue, but I mean work related. And sometimes
but there are other issues also,
there are many other issues. When I'm also a nurse by profession, so sometimes I have to advise them if they haven't had good treatment or they had complaints. Then I make contact with a hospital or the clinic, and many of the because it's a small country, the nurses know me, and then I said that they shouldn't do this or what happened. And so, because sometimes the patients also tell their own stories, and they don't.
But tell them about the banks. The homes and the banks.
The home opening.
Yeah, the robbing.
That you have taken up. And then and then the homeowners and the struggle that they have with the banks. The loans, and the eviction of people from their houses, and what else? It's all different sort of, and then they have injury on duty, where maybe it's not properly. The employers do not want to register. They have to fill in forms if they go to the labor office.
Workers' compensation fraud. They try to limit their liability by not taking care of workers that are injured on the job. It happens in the United States all the time. Mass worker comp fraud. It's cost shifting. The capitalists want the public to pay for healthcare costs, so they try to prevent workers. In fact, at Tesla, the Tesla automobile factory in Fremont, California, they conspired to limit their liability for injured workers. Criminal.
And many of them, then we also found that there are some employers, they do not, we stay very close to the labor commissioner, and so that it's easy, also the contact, and many of these instant employers, the more established companies have come to it that they register their workers, because we've made complaints to the Labour Commissioner, and they've appointed Labour inspectors to go around and find out, they check their books, and then if they happen to get unfair labor practice or things like that, those are the sort of things that we touch on or work on. And so we also discovered many employers who do not want to register. They should register their company and also the workers. And then I've explained to many of them that they, in that way, it's easier for them. So if it's a genuine injury on duty, then the fund takes over the payment and the care of the worker.
Talk about your national healthcare system, because in California, the United States, there are millions of workers without healthcare. We have privatized healthcare system. Is it the same in Namibia as far as COVID and how COVID is affecting the working class, the homeless, the people of Namibia? What is the situation of healthcare coverage?
Yeah, we have a national health clinics. We have clinics, satellite clinics, where people, and we as nurses have been trained to do what they call sifting. So the first, if people come to the clinic, they are not seen by a doctor, they first seen by a nurse, and we do the preliminary, the temperature, the preliminary investigations, and we also write down the history of the patient around his sickness, and then we forward it. If we can help, if it's what we call a self-limiting disease, then we can say a cold or a follow-up for hypertension or whatever. Then we deal, the nurses, the sisters, nursing sisters deal with that and assisted by them. And then only serious cases or chronic cases that need to be get a prescription from a medical officer, from a doctor.
There's a good infrastructure, but it's an inherited infrastructure from the colonial eras. And it has been, the primary health has been boosted by the role of the
trained nurses.
Of the WHO and UNICEF.
Yeah.
It is not because of the competence of the local government. This has been improvement that one can't deny. As far as the UNICEF and the WHO are concerned. But that is where it ends. The level of corruption and so on are derogating the National Health Service. There tend to be a shortage of medicines and so on. Again, the only thing that props up this is donor money, especially from Germany. The thing that I think the reason why Germany puts in so much money is because of they are vying with the other imperialist countries here. And that is why they put in money, and they've got a considerable German community of German origin. Although they have long lost their ties to the Aryan race, they are normal Africans here. But
not
they,
very flat.
no, but they have
But they
retained.
also
They have
open
retained.
schools
Yeah,
here.
they've retained certain of their disciplines of the German discipline, and they at least look after the ecology of, especially of the coastal areas. They are jealously guarding over that, which I am thankful for. But but that is the situation in this country.
And one of the issues of the miners, uranium miners, is their their illnesses, cancer, deaths,
Yeah.
and they're concerned that their longevity, being a
Yes.
uranium miner, is a serious issue for them, and compensation.
Yeah, okay. There, I must say that some scientists say there is no radiation. There is no radiation contamination, but some say there is. Now, I'm not in a position to state what is the situation. What I know definitely is that at the copper mine in Tsumeb, there is contamination, serious contamination with. There are very dangerous toxins there, and the uranium miners took Rio Tinto zinc to England in a court case which they won against Rio Tinto on cancer and stuff like that. So I presume that is a legitimate concern, and it needs to be investigated scientifically. But the point is that even if the mine does not give off toxins, but health and safety concerns can only be maintained through unionized workers. That is the truth. That is the same with the fishermen. That is the same with miners generally.
Yeah, and
the thing is that these people are reducing. These Chinese wish to reduce the safety standards, the medical aid, the medical insurance, and things like that.
So maybe you can talk about the appeal that you want to workers in South Africa, and Namibia has a very close connection with the workers' movement and struggle in South Africa, and also what workers and people around the world can do to support this particular case of the miners and workers in Namibia. It's because it seems that you are bringing together workers from different sectors all together collectively.
Yeah, the situation is obviously South Africa's working class. It's a giant working class. It is, in fact, the most important sector of the working class in Southern Africa. And South Africa has got a massive industrial base, which Namibia does not have. What the historical role between the of the Namibian working class was in a symbiotic relationship, a political relationship between Namibia and South Africa. As we observe historically, is that Namibia actually offset the struggles of union struggles that raged in Southern Africa, especially in South Africa. And historically, they've had this bond in which they showed solidarity to each other. Namibia would, for instance, the Namibian workers would donate 1 rand, South African rand each, in solidarity with the South African working class, and vice versa. Those are the relationships that they've had. For the Namibians, Namibia's got a population of less than 3 million. It's got a small working class base. It has a militant working class, but that is not enough to stem the onslaughts of the imperialists. What it needs a connection with the South African working class. And it has already, the fishermen has united with the South African fishermen. They've not yet worked out a proper program, but the situation needs for is absolutely necessary for solidarity between the South African unions and the Namibian unions.
And there has been international solidarity with Namibian workers. The Liverpool dock workers had a boycott.
Yes, I know.
Maybe you can talk about that. That's very important.
Okay, but first of all, we need that connection between South Africa and Namibia. Then the other thing is that the Liverpool dockers themselves have proved what international solidarity can mean, because when they refuse to offload the nuclear
uranium
of Rio Tinto Zinc, they put the Thatcher government in a real crisis, and it had an enormous impact on Namibia itself, also on the militancy of the workers there. And
what impact did it have?
The effect was, when was that? It was 1981. No, the workers were were fighting between when was it? That 1982 or 1983 that the Liverpool dockers refused to offload this, but it was in that time span. And when the Liverpool dockers did that, there were a whole number of wildcat strikes in Namibia, and there was everything. There was jubilation, and there was a rise in militancy amongst the working class. These are the effects of international solidarity. And sometimes it is not even the material support. It is that support, that solidarity amongst workers, which creates this increased militancy, the increased ability to organize, and the confidence to organize. That is what the Liverpool dockers' strike meant to Namibian workers. It was an enormous event.
How is Namibia now being affected by COVID? It's a world pandemic. Even the United States is, the disease is ravaging the country, even though it's the richest country, one of the richest countries in the world. And workers are being coerced to go into factories, meat plants, workers are dying. Even healthcare workers are dying in the United States. They don't have enough PPE, protective personal equipment. If this has happened in the United States, what is happening in Namibia as far as protection of working people and dealing with the virus?
In Namibia, because of the second wave of infections, which is strange because it is summer, and we thought that summer would reduce the infections. Now somehow it does not. But the problem that we have is that you have a government that they've got no real plan. They've got no strategy linked to any scientific methodology or a program to reduce this. That is the problem. Even the testing and so on does not have a strategy. They don't explain any strategy, etc. And for us, the problem of pandemics is that there must be a rapport between the state and the people. And I think that is a problem that we have around the world, is that these states are not from the people, and they are not of the people. They represent alien classes, and because of that, it is difficult to contain the situation. Personally, I would not say with great authority, but I firmly believe that only a working class, true working class state will be able to contain these things, because there will be consensus reached between the working class and the state. They will make joint decisions on how to fight the virus. There is nowhere there is discussions with the communities and with an agreement how to fight the virus, because we are conscious beings, we are living beings, and if we decide together, I think we can, with the infusion of science, we can effectively fight the virus.
The solution for working people in the United States, China, Namibia, South Africa, around the world, has to be the construction of an international working class movement. We're facing the same multinationals, the same capitalists around the world. How do you see this new period? Because you have in the United States economic decline of US imperialism, you have the growth of China, and apparently China is now exploiting workers in Namibia and South Africa and around the world. How do you see internationalism, working class internationalism in this epoch?
The point is working class internationalism has never, could never have been a question of dispute. If one looks, let's first look at the structure of imperialism. It's linked. The international exploiters and parasites are linked. Whether it's Chinese imperialism, it's linked to American parasites and so on. And the working class, if it wishes to fight things like climate change, etc., because climate change at the moment is threatening the whole human race. If it wishes to fight that, it has to connect internationally. The reason why we sent from Namibia, which is a very small country and obviously very insignificant to many Marxist thinkers and so on, but size is not always the deciding factor. It might be the start of great things, and that is why we send messages and messages. We can't reduce it to nationalism. We keep on sending to the world's working classes, hoping that sooner or later we might catch a fish in the net, that they will come together. And then we found the angel in you, who linked up with the Rossing fishermen. We hope it's the start of great things. And we've already linked up with the former Liverpool workers, I think two leaders of that period, and mine workers in Dunn in Britain, and then you. And we hope to, if we don't succeed in this, we are all in trouble, I think.